It seems for the most part we're happy with our lot in life.
I really enjoy living in Newcastle. I think the people here are really relaxed and friendly.
Pretty good. It's a pretty cruisy lifestyle.
That's the picture painted by the Hunter Valley Research Foundation's Wellbeing Watch scorecard. Released every 2 years, it looks at health, wealth and happiness in the region, and on average residents ranked their wellbeing as 4.16 out of 5.
More income after a certain point doesn't make for greater well-being. Once you reach a certain threshold, most people track along very happily. What makes for low well-being is lack of income, lack of education, poor housing, lack of choices.
More than 30% of people surveyed had experienced a shortage of money, with 48% of those saying they struggled to pay utility bills on time. Meanwhile, the Foundation's quarterly economic figures were also released today.
The main thing today was that we still have a strong economy, and that's clear from the data. We've still got strong employment numbers, and they've been generally increasing over quite a considerable period of time.
But the labour market has weakened, with a 45% fall in job advertisements.
We're going from the investment phase in that sector to the production phase. So we're losing a bit of employment in engineers.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
We think there's something like 400 young people through the Hunter, either couch surfing with friends or living with somebody that is not their actual home, a lot of them through no fault of their own.
Welcome to Royal Scone. The jewel in country racing's crown. The two-day event boasts standalone status on a Saturday, which means the eyes of the racing public will be on our thoroughbred capital.
To bring a Saturday race meeting and elevate the importance of the entire area via that has been immensely important. I mean, it's probably the biggest thing that's happened in country racing, and one of the biggest things happened in this town, really.
A deal struck with Racing New South Wales makes the meet the biggest winner racegoers will back all weekend. It's also benefited from $500,000 in track upgrades.
New running rails, new presentation area, new drainage and new race day stalls. This will bring the club right up to speed.
All up, it's the perfect recipe for luring punters.
It's had 2 runs, and I always think they run better on the third.
Are they thinking through their bets, do you think?
Some are, some aren't, but that's racing.
But for some, it's a far easier decision.
Well, I'm an owner of a horse in this race, so I've just put a bet on her.
Easy pick?
Easy pick, but, you know, don't know how she'll go.
Others preferring to hedge their bets on the fashion stakes.
Feeling the cold today at all?
It's freezing, but I was not wearing a jacket. I did not want to wear a jacket.
The racing continues tomorrow. Christy Reading, NBN News.
Barrister Ian Lloyd QC was hired by the Commission to provide an independent assessment of how Strikeforce Lantle was conducted. Lantle was the police strike force set up to investigate claims that clergy within the Maitland-Newcastle diocese concealed cases of child sexual abuse. Mr Lloyd's report describes Lantle as thorough and rigorous. During questioning, he told the Commission the report given to the Director of Public Prosecutions was one of the most thorough he's ever seen. The strike force was set up to investigate the claims of 4 individuals. Subsequently, more came forward, but their complaints did not form part of the investigation. Mr Lloyd said Lantle provided a complex investigation spanning nearly 2 years, and it realistically could have gone on forever if all subsequent allegations were to become part of it. Mr Lloyd also commended the work of Peter Fox, although he was never included in the strike force. It was his allegations that sparked the commission after the detective turned whistleblower made claims that the Catholic Church was involved in a cover-up and senior police in the Hunter didn't adequately investigate the claims. Assistant Commissioner Max Mitchell also took to the stand today defending the actions of police. He denied claims by Mr Fox that he was told to stop investigating the church, claiming he was not included in Strikeforce Lantle because of his close ties with Newcastle Herald journalist Joanne McCarthy, who police suspected was being given information by Mr Fox. Mr Fox has always maintained it was Ms McCarthy's close ties with alleged victims that would have significantly helped police investigations. However, officers were told to cut communications with her. She is one of several witnesses who the Commission did not get time to examine during this 2-week hearing. The remaining witnesses will be called when the second half of the inquiry begins on the 24th of June. It's now been extended by a week and will examine how the church handled allegations of abuse and the extent to which it helped or hindered police investigations. Kath Landers, NBN News.
We're taking each race at a time. If she runs well tomorrow, we'll certainly consider Brisbane. We'll just see how tomorrow goes. She certainly holds a very soft spot for us, and we want to protect her as much as we can.
We've enjoyed the night, we've enjoyed our time here in Newcastle, we've been treated unbelievably well. Anywhere we've gone in the city, everybody's been so warming towards us.
Back on the training paddock with a smile on his face, Joe Wheelhouse admits he desperately needed a break after being let go by the Jets. Despite interest from rival clubs, his mind and heart weren't in the right place.
You know, there were a number of good offers, but at that time I wasn't ready to play, so I would have been going there basically for the money, and that I've always said that's not the right reason.
When an offer from Brisbane for next season also fell through, Wheelhouse chose to join his brother Abe at Lambton in the NBN State League. The former Jets captain has also turned his attention to coaching juniors and working with a Lambie youth service. But he's not ruling out a return to the A-League.
I never shut the door on going back, and it's been good to me for 13 or 14 years, so I'd be silly not to look at something if something was to pop up, but at the moment I'm content with what I'm doing.
With the likes of Abe and experienced striker John Majerowski already on board, the Jaffers can't believe their luck.
It's a great addition. Things have just been starting to go good for us now. We got a few players back from injury. We've just had 2 wins in a row, so things are starting to click, and no better time really for Job to come in.
Wheelhouse is hoping to play some solid minutes when he makes his debut against South Cardiff tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure the body will be okay. It's just a matter of the mind agreeing with what the legs want to do, so we'll see how we go.
The rest of round 7 takes place on Sunday with Western to take on Lake Macquarie while the Eagles host Olympic. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. A chilly offshore breeze provided ideal surfing conditions at 1 Mile for an event where it's sometimes hard to stand up for yourself. The young guns showed everyone how it's done in the under-21s, with Kai Bates finishing on top. While Merriweather's Dylan Henry impressed plenty on his way to 4th. Fellow Hunter surfer Hannah Finlay-Jones went 1 better, grabbing 3rd in the Open Women's. The Open Men's event featured some of Australia's best. Avoca's Toby Cracknell would finish a close 3rd behind World Tour heavyweight Bo Nixon from Tweed Heads. But it was the power and speed of Kingscliff's Justin Holland that truly impressed the judges as he carved his way to victory.
We still surf all different craft, shortboard, longboards, but it's just another craft, and it's fun for days like this. So, but the performance level is just going through the roof, and as you can see, the boards are getting smaller and smaller.
With the surfing all wrapped up, the festival continues tomorrow with paddle races at Shoal Bay. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Concerns about the social and environmental impacts of mining are rarely out of the headlines, especially in the Hunter.
There's a groundswell of opposition to the expansion of coal and gas from one end of the country to the other.
This 3-day gathering at Curry will hear from domestic and international experts on the impacts of mining, its future and the role of government.
I think it's starting to become a political issue, but it's been dealt with pretty cynically, where they'll protect a marginal electorate, but they won't protect our best farmland. They'll protect Western Sydney, but they won't protect the Hunter Valley.
But organiser John Hepburn also believes, regardless of regulation, the writing's on the wall for fossil fuels.
This energy revolution is happening not just here, but in India, China, the US, everywhere, where the price of renewable energy is falling faster than anyone could possibly have imagined. At the same time, fossil fuels are becoming more expensive. So if anyone thinks that the economy of the Hunter Valley is going to be dependent on coal mining in 20 years' time, they're living in la-la land.
Greens councillor Michael Osborne, who yesterday announced he'll again run for the federal seat of Newcastle, was among the 260 attendees and keen to talk about more than just alternative energy sources.
People feel that Labor's not the answer, and certainly an Abbott government would be worse for Newcastle, so I'm the alternative.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
Just a few hundred metres from where he once captained his city, Job Wheelhouse started a new life today as a Lambton Jaffa, with a healthy crowd on hand to watch his debut. South Cardiff's Denis Fajkovic tried his best to steal the spotlight. At times there was some extra attention for the A-League veteran, as he displayed the skills that made him a household name in the Hunter. In the first half, the game lacked genuine chances. Connor Evans went close from right in front. Wheelhouse set up Michael Lawrence just before the break, but keeper Joshua Cox stood tall for the Gunners. Job's brother Abe started the second half with a quick yellow card, while Fajkovic went looking for the opener from long range. In the end, it wasn't Lambton's day. Gunners captain Jared Johnson came close to opening the scoring, but it was a Dino Fajkovic run that set up Bradley Waters before he provided the killer blow.
Over his many years of service, Tony Tamplin became the face of the variety. And as if he planned it himself, the sun was shining on this year's convoy. Fittingly, his wife and family waved the bashers off.
It's an absolute honour. I had no idea it was this big. It was all a bit of a secret from us, but I'm glad we're here to enjoy it with them.
Ahead, a 7-day, 2,500 kilometre trek for charity through country New South Wales, which over the years has become as big as Tony's heart.
Very funny, man. And him and I were going to co-compare, but that blew that out of the didn't.
We managed to make a noise in the middle of the minute's silence, but somehow I think Tony would have enjoyed that.
He was the heart and soul of variety, not just this event. Variety is a much bigger thing than the event.
And with a record number of entrants, it's expected this year's event will raise more than $700,000 for children in need.
Well, as long as we can improve the lives of children across the board here in our local area, that's our biggest aim. So whether it be an individual or a school or a hospital, the money will go to where it's most needed.
The 80 vehicles and their posse decorated in their own weird and wonderful way.
And I can't wait. Tuesday's nude day in the car. Yeah! Oh boy! Yippee!
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
We've got our vets here having chat to people about, vaccinations and desexing and that kind of thing.
The undefeated Scorpions wasted no time showing why they're the competition leaders. The Butcher Boys made a meal of a Mick Moran kick before Blake Gallen stole the show. A Bobby Kona mistake sparked some push and shove, but it wasn't long before Macquarie was in again, Jared Edwards with his first. When prop Danny Vaughan cruised over virtually untouched and Edwards scored a controversial try in the corner, Central looked in trouble. But the Butcher Boys are building a reputation for comebacks. Randall Briggs and Matt Simon got the ball rolling. Down 20-6, Terry Collins put the home side firmly back in the hunt early in the second. Not to be outdone, Royce Jeffries gave the visitors some breathing space, Macquarie in front 26-12. When Samisi Bale burrowed his way over from dummy half, Central supporters had hope, but it was the Scorpions who maintained their perfect start to the season.
The charred remains of what was a boat hire business at Pelican. It went up in flames just before midday, the fire destroying the bottom floor. Firefighters were also confronted with flammable materials, including aerosol cans, paint thinners and disused fuel tanks.
While they were making entry, it flashed over. It's a pretty dangerous fire for the firefighters. They did very well to get into the fire and to extinguish it.
6 crews managed to contain the blaze with only minimal damage to a residential apartment above.
90% of the building's been saved, so they've done a really good job.
The owner of the building was able to escape, suffering shock and smoke inhalation. 2 other people in the apartments above also got out unscathed. While the cause is unknown, the damage bill is expected to top $500,000. Diana Bushby, NBN News.
They're highly trained and experienced people caring for our little ones. But many of them are gutted with the Newcastle Council-operated 5-star family daycare on the chopping block.
And a lot of them are talking about leaving the scheme altogether, and that means that where do all these 500 children go, let alone the 250 on the waiting list?
5-Star is an umbrella organisation supporting 62 Newcastle early childhood educators who all work from home. It operates from a house in Lambton with 6 administration staff and 4 educator assistants.
At the moment, the organisation is running as a profit. It's actually feeding money back into council.
So questions are being asked about how much council will actually save. The service will be transferred to Port Stephens Council. Coordinators there will be mobile and respond quickly to educators' needs. But currently, Newcastle support staff are only 10 minutes away in an emergency.
We're on our own in the home with 5 children, and we need someone to come in an emergency situation.
Fees are also expected to increase. Educator Robert Ann Lavelle says Newcastle Council should sell the building if that's necessary, move the admin staff and capitalise by lifting fees itself rather than offloading the service. Council today refused to speak on camera, saying information sessions will be held at Wallsend Library tonight and at New Lambton on Thursday. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
For this proud and long-time leader, the plight of Dungog Council is far from over.
The report that's out there from the Independent Review Panel highlights the merger or proposed merger of Dungog with Maitland. However, in saying that, it is only a report.
Tomorrow night, General Manager Craig Deasy will address councillors on what lies ahead. A combination of worn-out roads and 46 tired wooden bridges need $51.9 million worth of work. Facing another financial loss this year, Dungog is the only Hunter council that won't be supporting the Special Olympics and even events like the Dungog Film Festival.
So much about stop spending money. It's about seeing what is the value to our community.
They are saying there won't be forced amalgamation. Doesn't matter whose flag flies over this 2,200 square kilometres of land, those bridges and those roads have still got to be done in the next, 2 decades.
And who does them is likely to eventually go to a community vote.
Well, they've got to look after themselves financially, but I hope they stay here.
I think a lot of things are inevitable, and I think for all of us to survive.
The guys who do the work are going to be out of the town.
Next week, councillors will meet to form a formal position.
At the end of the day, people in this area are going to pay more in rates, and they're going to want to see a better bang for the buck.
Nat Wallace, NBN News. At a conference on mine safety, Minerals Council CEO Stephen Galilee was talking the future of the industry.
We have rising costs. We have government policies that perhaps aren't supporting the mining industry as strongly as they could.
A survey commissioned by the industry body found that 70% of respondents regarded mining as important to the future of the Hunter. But in the last 5 months, more than 600 miners in the region have lost their jobs.
We have seen job losses in the mining industry in the Hunter over recent months, and that needs to be taken heed of by our political representatives.
And with the high Australian dollar coupled with low commodity prices, the potential for further job losses here in the Hunter Valley still looms.
It's important that our political leaders understand that they need to actively support policies that support mining.
But John Hepburn of Green Group The Sunrise Project thinks mining is already under-regulated.
The mining industry is far too close to government, and the government is not actually protecting the interests of communities.
In Kurri Kurri for a conference that aims to support community groups, Mr Hepburn says he wants the government to focus on a more sustainable form of employment.
There's more jobs in renewable energy than in coal power, so it's a much bigger employer.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
We want to compare a group of people who we give the exercise to immediately and a group of people who will wait another 12 weeks before they get the exercise intervention.
Following the embarrassing loss to Canberra, the Knights could have been forgiven for feeling a sense of deja vu against the Bulldogs. Up 12-0 early, they went into the sheds at half-time just 4 points in front.
We didn't speak about previous weeks, but we did speak about the first 10 minutes into the second half and how important it is.
Wayne Bennett has no doubt the return of Jared Mullen played a big part in Newcastle's resurgence.
Well, he's got the skills, he's got every attribute a football player would love to have.
Mullen is unlikely to feature in the Blues' State of Origin plans, but Bennett believes more than a few of his Knights deserve consideration. Post-game, he took a polite stab at Laurie Daly.
Yeah, well, I'm happy with, there's a couple in that team, although we've been struggling in a couple of areas, there's been 2 or 3 of them playing pretty well, but Laurie picked the team, so it's no problems.
The form of Kevin Nagama was another talking point. Bennett says he stuck behind too many other good players to be expected to stay in the red and blue.
Australian player at fullback and Australian player in the wing, and James has played for New South Wales, so it's a bit tough.
Meanwhile, Newcastle rep selectors have gone for plenty of experience as the Rebels chase their 3rd straight country championship. Last year's real NRL grand finalists Wests and Cessnock will contribute 11 players to the 18-man squad. The side has its first training session next Monday night. And in Group 21, Scone hammered nearby Aberdeen, Denman beat Singleton in a game that produced 86 points, and Greater Branxton belted Muswellbrook. Looking to make up for a disappointing indoor season, Chad Reed came to the aptly named Hangtown suffering a severe stomach bug and was never really in the hunt. He finished 10th in the first race before missing the start again in the second. American Ryan Villapoto claimed victory in both races. Still overseas, and the Jets are celebrating some silverware after beating Chonburi FC to win the Singapore Soccer Sixers. A double to Taylor Regan and goals to Sam Galloway and James Brown saw Newcastle take the final 4-1. Back home, Lake Macquarie enjoyed some revenge in the Women's Premier League, winning the grand final rematch with Adamstown. Kate Hensman bagged the opener. Maddie Smith came close to equalising for the home side, but Rosebuds had no answer for W-League jet Stacey Day. Her first half double ensured Lake Macquarie remains comfortably on top of the WPL ladder. In other games, the emerging Jets hammered Valentine and Football Mid-North Coast edged out Merewether 2-1. Finally, to Black Diamond AFL, where Newcastle City threw everything at Cardiff. The fierce rivals were neck and neck in the first quarter, but by half-time City was in complete control. Central Coast teams continued to dominate the competition, with Killarney Vale and Terrigal Avoca overcoming their rivals from the Hunter.
Five people were sleeping inside when flames took hold of the Old Morrow Park Bowling Club.
I woke up to flames just a few metres away from my head. And then I just kind of freaked out and tried to get as much water in the room as possible, and then realised that I couldn't handle it myself.
For the past 8 years, it's been used as an arts and music hub, and those inside did all they could to combat the flames.
We tried the fire extinguisher and then that ran out, and we tried to get the hose and the clip wasn't on properly, and we tried all options and we just had to call the fire brigade and just save our own lives.
This morning, firefighters were still hosing down the gutted building as police tried to determine what triggered the blaze.
At this point in time, it's believed that a candle may have been responsible, the responsible item that's caused the blaze.
Those who used the space are trying to come to terms with how much they've lost.
Just can't even imagine finding something like that to replace it.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of musical instruments, equipment and props fell victim to the flames, as well as other personal belongings of those inside.
I think everyone is just starting to now have it sink in what's happened and how much has been lost, and what it means from this point forward to rebuild this and to restore what's gone.
From drama comes great art sometimes. So we're all just trying to cope at the moment in emergency mode and just stay together.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
From a personal perspective, the fact that Zimmerman Services is now here and offering so much support to people who were hurt as children, I think that's a wonderful contribution on behalf of the Maitland-Newcastle Diocese.
Some of the first cars to use the newest part of the Hunter Expressway. After being closed since last August, the on-ramp to the F3 at the Link Road is back open. Some 1,200 workers are helping shape the 40-kilometre stretch of roadway, and the signs are that the $1.7 billion project will be fully finished by the end of the year. When that happens, a trip between Newcastle and Branxton is expected to take as little as 25 minutes, and that anticipated reduction in travel time is having an effect on the real estate market.
Traditionally over the years we've seen people follow these freeways along out the back of Sydney, and that's going to happen in Newcastle. We're seeing growth of areas such as Gilliston Heights, Cliffley, Greta and Branxton, and even the new suburb of Huntley, which has followed that traffic route up to Singleton.
Median sale prices in some of those areas have jumped by as much as 42%.
It's a supply and demand thing, and we've got demand for people wanting to move to these areas, and that's going to see prices continue to rise.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
He's been a new classmate for many over the past few days. Education Minister Peter Garrett trying to drum up support for the government's proposed multi-billion-dollar education changes.
In the Hunter, you'd see more money going to schools under our national plan, but if Tony Abbott were ever to get government, then less investment would flow.
Woodbury Primary has already seen plenty of dollars. This school a target under current plans to try and create a level playing field. 40 new iPads, just the start of what's to come, according to Labor.
You could expect to see literacy coaches, making sure that kids in the early years of primary school have got good literacy under their belt.
But political soap opera is never far away. A day after the opposition was accused of trying to convince the New South Wales Premier to pull out of the Gonski deal, Labor's education campaign hit another snag, with Kevin Rudd's view on gay marriage stealing the spotlight.
He's let us know what he thinks. Fine, that's great. Let it stand there.
Is the timing bad though?
Oh, look, we're not going to discuss timing issues at this point.
One more question, Mr. Garrett.
Nash Wallace, NBN News.
Back home after a frustrating trip to Perth, Drew and Aaron Russell say they're happy with their cars. They simply had no luck in qualifying.
We sat in the pit lane till the last 5 minutes, and the second I left the pit lane, the red flag came out, so I didn't get a good lap time in, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Michael Hector finished outside the top 20 in all 3 races in Perth. He's now decided his future lies with Matt Stone Racing.
We've had a good relationship with Michael, and he's still sponsoring Aaron's car, and everything's still fine there. You know, he's just chosen to go in a different direction, and good luck to him.
Looking ahead to Townsville, the team's remaining 2 cars will receive new engines before the next round. Aaron's V8 also needs plenty of panel beating following a collision with Casey Stoner. It's clear the former MotoGP world champion hasn't endeared himself to the youngest Russell.
It's a different mentality from 2 wheels to 4 wheels. You know, you got to earn your stripes here, and something he didn't do with me, but you know, we'll race on. I don't hold any grudges, I just have a good memory.
Like Stoner, both brothers would ultimately love to one day drive in the V8 Supercar Series. The potential for an ongoing race in Texas has only added to their motivation.
It looked like an amazing track and looked like it was extreme fun to drive on, so hopefully I get there in a few years' time. From what I could see, it looked awesome. The track, I love the track. I wish Australia had a track like that, you know, fast flowing corners. It really suits what these cars are all about.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
I've got to work my way up through the ranks, so I think I've got to play 3rd grade in 2 weeks before I can actually get to 1st grade. I just didn't want to go and coach prima donnas, to be honest. Like, having been one of them, I knew what rugby players were like. Until I got a little bit of patience and wait till the kids grow a little bit older. There's plenty of time to coach, mate.
There's been plenty of noise over the Defence Force's new eyes in the sky. Already, millions of dollars has been invested in the Joint Strike Fighters, which will replace the FA-18s.
From Australian industry perspective, to date, there's been $300 million worth of contracts that have gone to Australian industry, and we're looking to try to maximise those going forward.
Today, those at the Second Defence Conference in Newcastle were told the JSF will eventually bring an economic windfall to the region. A collaboration between several nations, the fighters will now be delivered later, delayed by a revised US defence budget.
What we know today, we should be able to have the first two aircraft landing at RAF Base Williamtown in the late 2018, early 2019 timeframe.
But with upgrades needed at Williamtown before they arrive, there's still plenty of work to be done.
Decisions have to be made with that, but with potentially with the basing them at Williamtown, with up to 75 aircraft. Infrastructure that will be there will be over up to $900 million worth of infrastructure.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
The latest figures from the Salvation Army show an alarming number of Australians are living below the poverty line, and the Hunter is not immune.
We know that people in the Hunter are doing it very, very tough. We can see that every day with people coming into our centres, and this survey has just really verified that.
More than 2,000 clients were surveyed nationally, with 51% saying they had gone without meals. More than half couldn't pay their electricity bills on time, and 92% had no savings. The Salvos are seeing greater demand for their services.
I think it's something like a 12% increase on last year, which is just making it really tough on our end, but it's also heartbreaking for us to see people doing it so tough.
The charity is preparing for a busy weekend. Thousands of volunteers will take part in the annual door knock, a key component of the Red Shield appeal. This year, the Salvos hope the pavement pounding will raise $380,000 in the Hunter.
The Red Shield appeal is vital to our work here in the Hunter region. Without that money, we will have to close services and figure out what we can fund and what we can't. It's that serious.
Diana Bushby, NBN News. This wasn't always a thriving wetland. 4 years of restoration work has turned what was a farm into the Tomago wetlands. And now the work of the National Parks, New South Wales Fisheries, the University of New South Wales and Hunter Bird Observers Club has been recognised with a National Trust Heritage Award.
They're an important part of the whole wetland system in the Hunter, which really leads the way in the state for wetland restoration.
Stage 1 success can be seen in the return of rare migratory birds.
Big part of it was to get the migratory wading birds back on site. And they're coming from places like the Korean Peninsula and all through China, flying down and landing here, and they've actually been sighted.
But it was no easy feat. To maintain the wetlands, the amount of water coming into the site needs to be just right. Smart gates were developed to let in water as needed.
So we try to get the right water balance on the site and to make sure that the right amount of tide flushes in and out.
Now attention is turning towards completing the last 2 stages of the project.
So stage 2 started last year. We've opened up another section of the wetland. It's evolving, it's turning more into a wetland right now. We're really proud of where that's going.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
He left Newcastle in 2008 and wasn't sure he'd ever return.
I didn't think I'd be coming back to the Knights. I didn't expect to be playing NRL either.
5 years on, Robbie Rocco is cementing his spot in the Knights 17. Now, the 22-year-old former East Maitland Junior is here to stay.
It's my first deal that's sort of longer than a year, which is really relieving.
10 years his senior, David Farlongo, has been playing for his future and has now been rewarded with a 1-year extension.
Had this deal not come up, would have you considered retirement?
Probably yes and no.
Dane Gagai will also remain at the club until 2015. The flashy centre has been feeding off the form of Jared Mullen, who admits to feeling more freedom now the Origin spotlight is on others.
I suppose all the talk of Maloney and Carney, does that sort of keep it out of your mind?
All that talk in the last couple of years has probably sort of messed with the head a bit, but now it's out of the mind.
And in what's thought to be a world first, the Twitter handles of fans will replace a sponsor's logo on the Knights jerseys this weekend.
It's something new, it hasn't been done before, and look, as players, I suppose we want to perform well and do them proud.
Supporter Matt Barnes has the biggest name, skipper Kurt Gidley.
I think it's just a bit of fun. I think I might get a bit of feedback from some Knights fans and maybe a few extra followers.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. He's our national keeper and the league's leading goaltender. Olivier Martin has one goal in mind this season.
To win, to get redemption from last season. So right now that's kind of the only goal in my head, the only goal I'm really interested in.
Last weekend's trip to Melbourne had it all. The linesman got a little too close to the action and made headlines in the process.
Went to finish a hit and the referee was in the way, and the rest is kind of history. It's actually pretty funny because my brother lives in Canada and he says it actually made the news over there.
Saturday's home game is likely to be just as physical.
Not too sure what to expect in terms of Adelaide. They got a lot of new players, new imports we haven't seen before. It'll be a first time.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
The epitome of a close call. The blue sedan smashed through the brick fence and into the front of this Mayfield home. The owner was sitting in the sunroom just centimetres to the left of where the car wound up.
If the car go straight, George will be dead.
Kim Tan rents part of the house from the 67-year-old.
I was in the kitchen doing some work, and I heard a big bang, real loud. And then I sing up for George, and he didn't answer me.
He suffered multiple injuries but is in a stable condition, lucky to be alive. Witnesses say the accident occurred during light rain early this afternoon.
I heard a big screech and then I turned around and then a car just flew past me and then crashed into the house. A man was stuck inside the house and the old lady and the man was stuck inside the car.
The driver, aged in his 80s, and his female passenger were taken to hospital.
I said, how come you didn't stop? And he said, I couldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.